This season on Kerr Fatou. Fatou. Oli.
For the first time in the history of the Gambia Printing Publishing Corporation proudly introduces the Biliomatic exercise book printing machine. The machine has the capacity to print more than 20,000 books per hour. Yes, 20,000 books per hour. It also prints magazines, newspapers, calendars, flyers, normal books and all kinds of printed documents plus items at affordable prices. With the Biliomatic printing machine, GPPC can now render high quality and non-size restricted printing service supply across the sub-region. Rush now and partner with GPPC for all your public and private printing service needs. Print with us today and you'd be offered highly professional, reliable and efficient service delivery by our team of experts. The Gambia Printing and Publishing Corporation is here to meet all demands and is reliable at all times. For more info, contact us on 437-4493 or 437-4402. GPPC is Gambian and it's yours.
When we touch down, better broke down.
With Gamtel G-Fiber, now you can enjoy super fast internet in gigabytes. G-Fiber is affordable, stable, secured, and accessible to homes, businesses, and enterprises. With Gamtel G-Fiber, the future is speed. Gamtel, creating a brighter future in communication.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Kerr Fatou. Tonight, in our series of programs, talking to political representatives, political leaders, and of course, people interested in politics. With me tonight, I have Bokar, Sulayman Bokar. Sulayman is a Gambian resident in the United Kingdom, but he is actively participating in Gambian politics. Of course, if you've been following us, I think he was here in season 3. We talked about PDOIS and the politics in the Gambia. And of course, December election is fast approaching, and it will be interesting to talk to Sulayman about the status of the country. Voter registration just ended, and also the transformative agenda of the PDOIS. Sulayman, one more time, welcome to Kerr Fatou.
Thank you, Fatou. Once more, delighted to be back and then participate in the political discourse on current affairs in the best interest of our country and democracy.
Gamcell data, now even better. Enjoy 20% extra data on all Gamcell data bundles. Buy 20 megabytes and get extra 4 megabytes. Buy 50 megabytes and get extra 10 megabytes. Buy 100 megabytes and get extra 20 megabytes. Any amount of Gamcell data bundle you buy, you will receive 20% extra data for free. Dial *302* data amount hash or go to your Yaiborom menu and choose your data bundle now. Gamcell data is fast, lasts longer and very reliable. Gamcell Yaiborom.
Thank you very much. First, before we get into politics, I wanted to talk to you because obviously you are also a frequent writer. You always submitted articles to Kerfata and other media houses. And one of the piece that you have also presented to us that was really interesting for me is your take on the Gambian media. You have always commented when there are issues going on in the media or when you feel like there were things that you wanted to raise. So why are you so much interested in commenting on issues about the media? And what's your take about the current situation of the Gambian media?
Thank you very much, Fatou. This question is in relation to my field.
Yeah.
My PhD research is on media laws and journalism in post-colonial Africa.
Yeah.
The Gambian media has a colonial background. So that colonial background sets its context from the first regime to the second regime until where we are right now. And that is why we were and are still having certain colonial laws that were used to stifle the media. So I became interested in the media way before even traveling to the UK. Obviously, I started as a journalist here in the Gambia.
Oh, wow.
And then whilst in the UK, I decided to do my bachelor's degree in media. And then whilst writing my dissertation on alternative journalism in the Gambia, taking Fourier as a case study, because Fourier did extremely well under Jammeh by being an alternative that will report on human rights abuses and disregards for the rule of law and abuses of the presidency. So Fourier was really providing alternative views that were not found on the mainstream
media.
Or the public media. So whilst writing that dissertation, I came across these laws on libel and defamation, and then I came across cases of torture of Gambian journalists. And these cases were espoused by Gambian journalists at the ECOWAS court, the likes of Musa Seydi Khan.
Yeah.
And having read that case and the rulings, how judgments were delivered against the Gambia government, the interpretation techniques relying on international human rights law to make a judgment against the Gambia. So this motivated me to also read law, to understand how these two disciplines are related. And then I proceeded to do my master's in international human rights law. And then right after finishing my master's in international human rights law, then I decided to think about an interdisciplinary method of combining these two fields for my PhD. And that is what exactly I did. So I am an interdisciplinary researcher touching on media and law. In other words, using both media, traditional media research methods and legal research methods to carry out my investigation on how journalists operate within the media and within the legal and policy framework of the media in the Gambia. So the Gambian media has evolved over the years. Under Jammeh, it has this authoritarian character. In a sense, there was a high degree of self-censorship. Most of the respondents who participated to my research, participated in my research, of the view that critical stories were no-go areas. And those who dared to do that had to face the repercussions through repressive measures, either torture or arrest, detentions, or being exiled. So they were sort of combination of all these factors that defined the Gambian media at the time. So the Gambian media had that authoritarian character, and the way journalists perceived those laws and how they operate within the policy framework of the media was mainly fear and self-censorship. So this affected the type of content they come up with, and to an extent it affected the democratic space that is required in a pluralistic media environment to have an informed citizenry about public affairs. For the media to assume its fourth estate responsibility, this was not the case on the Jammeh. Like I said, there were others who really tried very well, but notwithstanding, they were not an exception to the environment of fear that was really happening in the country. Some scholars did argue that it was not an authoritarian character. It does not have that. It does not have a libertarian. One cannot situate the Gambian media within these two contexts. But notwithstanding, from my research, the hegemony itself that other scholars argued on falls within the authoritarian character. So, and I do remember some of the respondents who were working for the public media who really say that anything that deals with the oppositions was not allowed. So they were not taking the critical approach. They were mainly focusing on giving publicity to the government, their projects, sort of promoting the ruling government. So then the media evolved along those lines until where we are right now. So, but in short, to summarize, we were lacking that critical and vibrant media in the past. Exceptionally, papers like Foroya did well. That is by virtue of my research findings, just to be fair to them. Then we had a new democratic dispensation that is on the barrow now. We have seen a lot of media houses emerging from the print to the broadcast, especially the television. On the Jame, there was just one single television station, which was typical of a hegemonic environment. And then now we have several other stations that are competing with the public broadcaster, and that is GRS. We have platforms like yours, media outlets like yours here. So these are all alternatives now that Gambians can now have choices where to listen to. It's really now a marketplace of ideas with all these media houses. So now that marketplace of ideas, that is what is going to shape our democratic dispensation to an extent that voters will now be able to listen to divergent views, different views, dissenting opinions, to be able to make decisions based on informed choices. So now, truly speaking, we have a libertarian media environment. It's like it's a liberal environment. Everyone is free.
But the laws are still there.
Yes.
Yes, we just got the National Assembly passed the access to information bill, and we commended the government and the GPU, but we still have the bad media laws in our books up to now, 5 years into the new government's, the coalition government's existence. And these were the things that they campaigned on. We are going to change the laws. We are going to make sure the media is free. Yes, we can operate freely, and yes, but the laws are still there.
That is absolutely right, and the GPU has challenged this in one of the cases that I read. That was before the Supreme Court, and apparently the Supreme Court delivered a verdict that some of those laws are constitutional, except sedition against the Gambia government, because sedition had two components in the past. That is sedition against the president and sedition against the Republic of the Gambia, that is the government. So the Supreme Court made a ruling that it uphold the constitutionality of sedition against the president. In other words, if you have to do anything right now or say anything that will bring the president into contempt or being ridiculed, he has the legal powers to drag you to arrest you and drag you to court and then file criminal charges against you. So those laws are still there. But those laws are inconsistent with international human rights law. They're inconsistent with best standards of practice all over the world. Wherever it is believed that there exists democracy, there exists media freedom, press freedom, such kind of laws are really not democratic. And now, because the Supreme Court has upheld the constitutionality of such laws, there has to be that political will to repeal them. So it is up to the government to see to it that they have to repeal them.
And it all brings down to, I know I didn't want to drag you to the constitution, the new draft that was killed, but it all brings us to, that. If we have passed, because there were really progressive laws in the new draft that would have helped address all of this. Like the electoral laws, the media laws, and other laws, human rights issues that were really promoted in the new draft. It all brings down to us to the new draft. That's why I've always said to all the coalition partners, including PDOIS, the entire coalition failed us as a people. This was their campaign. This was what they told us, that they were going to institute reforms, first and foremost, to change our institutions, to change our laws, because this was their fight 22 years ago. Would you say PDOIS will share the blame that the reason why we are not able to get electoral laws, to be able to change all of these media laws and others, is because they all failed to institute and to get us a new draft?
Well, I always do say that collective indictment is the height of injustice. That is simply because one has to establish individual responsibility before you arrived at a collective responsibility. And that is precisely to say that left to die alone, most of these reforms, the legal reforms, would have been exhausted by now. But for some reasons or for some political considerations, when the new government came into office, they came in their manifesto with the promise that they were going to amend the 1997 constitution. So apparently they said, okay, you know what, there is no need for piecemeal amendments. Let's just have a new constitution. For me, that was a tactic, a time-buying tactic, so that the government could stay beyond the time they promised to the Gambian people. That was it. So, yes, a lot could have been done, and it's not been done. And yeah, people have the right and to blame every single coalition stakeholder because they formulated and built everything together. But apparently, executive presidency became the deciding factor.
So talking about the laws, we just finished registration, voter registration. Did you register?
Yes.
Okay, so we just completed voter registration, and we are going to election with the old electoral laws because we don't have one. And we just finished the registrations. And what's your observation about the entire process, the registration process?
Well, there were expectations, first and foremost, that the IEC was targeting about 1 million voters to register. Apparently, it's not looking so. Whether they'll be able to register that amount. There may be several contributing factors to that. Maybe people are no longer interested, or maybe civil society groups have not done their work properly to encourage Gambians to register. So yes, there has been some tensions and claims of non-Gambians registering, and we have seen in some places election monitors or observers were being attacked, which was unfortunate and should not happen because Gambians have a right to freedom of movement all over the country. That has happened. So these are all lessons to learn so that we know how we should approach the election to build that peaceful atmosphere and an atmosphere of peaceful coexistence so that we don't destroy this little country we have called the Gambia. So my observation is that the situation is fragile. It's been polarized by sentiments and then so many other issues. But notwithstanding, there has to be the right leadership for that from both sides. The ruling government, the opposition parties, to incorporate that sense of national belonging, that discipline in their supporters, so we have peaceful elections when it comes to December.
Peaceful elections, that is what everybody should be preaching for. But now let's talk about the PDOIS. Few months to election, what is the agenda that the PDOIS will be selling to the voters?
The message here takes us to the transformative agenda, which is the key issue that you've asked. Now, the transformative agenda is to transform this country politically, socially, culturally, ecologically, socially. That is the transformative agenda. And these are all diverse areas that DOI envisages to transform this country to a new leap, so that we would not continue to rely on the old ways of doing things. And the old ways of doing things are the reasons why this country is in a deplorable situation. Is the reason why our public institutions are not looking effective. Our health sector is crumbling down. Our educations, the schools without proper furnitures. In this day and age, school kids should be benefiting from modern technology, learning from touchy materials, not with chalks and then sitting on dry. So DOI intends to change all that.
How does DOI intend to tackle the health crisis we're in right now? What is going to be the agenda to change, upgrade our health sector? You have seen the Women's Life Matters movement advocating for the lives of women dying in labor. What is DOI going to do to upgrade the health system in the country?
DOI, first and foremost, intend to build referral hospitals, otherwise specialist hospitals. We probably have only 1 or 2 specialist or referral hospitals in this country. So with the DOI government, every district, region would have a referral hospital, a specialist hospital, and villages would have health centers. So it would be to bring healthcare to the doorsteps of the Gambian people, so that some of these things would be tackled down. Now, maternal mortality, there are several contributing factors to that, okay? But mainly it has to do with poor living conditions and poor healthcare delivery, because women do conceive and sometimes they will not even see a nurse until at the point of delivery. So DOI intends to transform that system to ensure that pregnant women are registered, they are monitored, healthcare is at their doorsteps. Things like anemia, which is the major contributor to maternal mortality in this country, the causes would be addressed, and that is by ensuring that living conditions would improve.
So inequality is something that rural folks, there's so much gap between the rural and urban areas. With all these agendas that you want to implement, how are you going to work to make sure these things are accessible? I know I've always said to politicians, yes, they have the policies on paper, but it's about the implementations for me. If you have a referral hospital in Bansang, if the poor family who is feeding 1 meal a day, they have to choose between going to hospital or feeding their family. How do you bridge that gap to make sure they have access, not just having the facility there, but it's also the accessibility? How are they able to afford health care at their doorsteps?
So in terms of accessibility, we are talking about good roads, good transportation and communication network.
And the means.
Yes. So this is where DOI intend to invest in.
Okay.
And then investing into this, like you said, politicians will talk about good policies and programs, but the question is how.
Yeah.
And that's what made DOI very different from others. But because how DOI intends to cater for that is not to rely on an already contracting, narrow tax-based economy. The country seems to be relying on taxation to earn revenue than anything else. The rest is coming from loans and aid. So DOI is arguing that this is no longer sustainable, because it has led us to accumulating a debt burden of more than 76 billion dollars. So these would be areas that they would explore, and these areas are sovereign national wealth, the country's natural resources, the thousands of miles we own in the sea. We would be in charge and will be responsible. Notwithstanding, our development method is a cooperative method. We are not saying we are going to kick out all the businessmen out of the country, all those multinational companies that are established here. We are not saying we are going to kick them all out. So just to make that clear, before they'll be scared and possibly say when the day government comes in, no business will survive here, everything would be nationalized. That is not the argument. The argument is there will be public-private sector partnership on a win-win situation, a situation that will bridge the gap between the poor and the rich, so that the amount of inequality would be reduced. Gambians would benefit from what they own. So, going back to your question, the sovereign national wealth, that is what is going to be used. That is revenue derived from natural or mineral resources that this country has to give us that infrastructure. Good schools, good hospitals, good transportation system to ensure that our mothers and our sisters struggling in the villages would get the adequate healthcare delivery they need in a timely manner without having to struggle on donkey carts.
I've listened to the Secretary General Halifa Sallah on my platform several times, and he has spoken about how cooperative banking is something they would want to pursue, implement to make sure to help the agriculture sector by empowering farmers. But a lot of people will say, how is this going to happen? How is DOI going to help young people who are interested in entrepreneurship, and of course farmers who also want to mechanize their farming to be able to upgrade themselves, but also be able to make living out of farming, because that's the way forward right now. How is DOI going to do both of this?
Right. The key institution there would be the cooperative bank. The cooperative bank would be kind of an engine of growth for DOI. You've raised the issue of collateral security. That is precisely, in fact, the reason why we need a cooperative bank. Because with a cooperative bank, you don't need a collateral security to access loans. So you'll be able to access loans without having to provide as sort of a collateral security required by some other commercial banks. So a poor farmer cannot simply provide that kind of a collateral security. So our argument is that, an example, recently the government has paid out a lot of money during the COVID-19 relief situation. It is over $800 million or about $1 billion. So such amounts, if the state could gather that and dash that out within the country, is sufficient enough to create a cooperative bank for the farmers to rely on to be able to get the seeds, the fertilizer, the equipment they need to make sure that there is productivity in their farms, not just to have a seasonal sowing and harvesting, but to have farming as something that would be going on throughout. You have the irrigation facilities to rely on it for a living, not just for a seasonal work. So young entrepreneurs, regardless of background, regardless of profession, everybody would be able to access the cooperative bank for loans and then to invest into businesses. That is why for us we believe that for Gambia to have a leap forward we must create that capital at the productive base of the economy. And that capital, the cooperative bank would be the engine of growth for the farmers to rely on. Not just within the farming. Some of the coastal areas, you have villages along the river banks who could even create ecologies. I mean, the cooperative bank is something that they can rely on, build their ecologies, and then refund the money without having any hassle or whatsoever.
So what's DOI's position on the environmental issues that are happening in the country? I'm sure you were here when the storms came, and everybody's saying we should grow more trees, we should look after our environment, and already we have an environment crisis in the Combos.
DOI is very concerned about the environment, and that is why they have an ecological transformation plan. And that plan is to discourage afforestation, cutting down deforestation, and then encourage afforestation, protect our environment by having specialists and engineers who would spearhead in that field, supervise projects to protect our environment. And like you said, issues that are happening in Sanyang and I think Gunjur. So yes, on the DOI government, trust me, none of these things will happen.
But what is DOI doing right now? Because I mean, two of your most senior party leader and of course CDA are all in the parliament, and these things have been addressed there. What has been what were they able to do to bring to just to show us as a people that when this is the government, they will stop this? What evidently have they done to show us that they are really against all these things happening in the Combo areas?
Yes, I do believe that the chairman of the Committee on Environment, or the deputy chairman, is Suwaibu Ture. He is a member of DOI.
Yes.
They are in charge of the environmental issues, and particularly what is happening along the coast. It's rather unfortunate, but for a DOI to take a, other than having a policy that is designed or intended for a DOI government when it comes into power, now for DOI to be able to act alone in this regard, I cannot situate a resolution.
Halifa is a very influential member of the National Assembly, and
yes,
you know, a lot of these National Assembly members listen to him. Do you think it would have been something that he could have worked on and encourage parliamentarians to pass a resolution or even a bill to be able to stop all of these things happening in the coastal areas?
Yes, our problems are not laws. We have all those laws to protect our environment.
It's the enforcement.
Yes, our problem has to do with enforcement, and our problem has to do with how some of these contracts have been negotiated. Because some of these contracts, as a government,
were not even brought to the assembly.
Yes, in fact, also you cannot just come and then breach the contracts and just say stop and go, because when you do that, the next thing is you would be dragged to the International Investment Center. That is also like a tribunal. In fact, they have once delivered a judgment against the Gambia government. So, and then when you do things like that again, it frightens future investors. So things like that are complex to handle, but they can be handled with the right leadership that is aware of all its legal implications. And undoubtedly, the environmental impact is a devastating situation. What is happening in Gunjur and Sanyang is unacceptable. It cannot happen in any civilized nation. And basically, everyone is folding their hands. Something has to be done about it. But for me, I do believe that under a DOI government, something like this will never happen, because in the first place, the fishing industry will not be monopolized by foreigners or multinational corporations, because it is a key and a strategic area for food self-sufficiency in this country. And we will take advantage of the sea and then empower Gambians to be able to do the catching, land it in the Gambia, do the processing, and then protect our sea and environment as well. That for sure, DOI is committed to doing.
So now let's look at the economy. I know we looked at all these areas. What areas do you think we need to cut on? Right now, you just mentioned, I think over 50% of our budget is debt servicing. What goes to the population? Based on our economy, our budget is a tax-based economy. We rely on what GRA brings and also the donor partners. And most of the things, government is always investing in roads, and we are taking loans instead of grants. And these loans, we are not investing in projects that are going to be productive, that are bringing us money back, but instead we are investing in projects that are mostly politically motivated. So where do you think we're going wrong? Where should we cut looking at our budget? We like you said, we have signed so many laws. We are committed to the Mobutu declaration, committing 10% of our economy to agriculture. We are not doing that. The educational sector, we are spending over close to $1 billion on security. And obviously, that is not reflected in our society right now. The security system, everyone is saying things are really not in a good place. Where do you think we should be cutting, and where should we be investing more our resources?
There is this analogy that Cedia has.
Yeah.
He said, when a lion is hungry, with 3 young ones, and the food is not enough to feed them all, who should eat?
The children? No, or the mother? No?
Obviously, it's the mother.
I thought I would give my children first.
It's the mother because that would give the mother some strength to go out and do more hunting.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But if the children have to eat, the mother will die. And suddenly the children will die. So in other words, what that means here, our productive base is agriculture.
Yes.
So more should be invested into agriculture than any other sector in this country. Yes, we would argue that health is a priority. Education is a priority. But with food self-sufficiency, developing that productive base of the economy would quickly trickle down to all these areas. So if anywhere should be prioritized and more should be invested in our national budget, it should be agriculture. Then we will have the ability to develop other sectors of the economy. So the idea of cuts is a difficult thing because every sector you looked at in this country is struggling. So sometimes you don't even know where to cut. And for me, except you cut on what the president is spending. If you have to cut anywhere, cut the president's salary.
If you cut the president's salary, if you cut the president's salary, you might be encouraging corruption. If they don't have enough money, they might be taking from the state. That's another ideology people might advance.
Well, I think he's simply earning enough. Enough. By Gambian standards, he is earning enough. I believe that if you have to cut anywhere in our national budget, should be what is spent on allowances, what is spent on per diems, what is being allocated to the office of the president.
Wow. So, but all of these things you have said, from the agriculture, from the health, education, and also cutting down on our costs, especially on the presidency, it all needs, I said radical leadership. Somebody said it should be a strong leadership. But that can only happen if we have a strong civil service, a strong public service. And that is going to need a lot of strong leadership. The civil service reforms, which is supposed to be implemented, is is non-existent. So what happens? How is DOI going to be able to manage the current civil service that we have to be able to implement this? I bet you will not be able to implement these projects with the current civil service that we have and public service.
Yes, we do recognize the fact that, in fact, that is why we're calling for a system change. And the call for system change is not just to change a government.
Will you say DOI has been vindicated from day one? This was Khalifa's, when he said that, people were like, system change. We started playing around with it. People started joking about it. But today I have politicians on this chair, everybody talking about how we need to change the system. Would you say DOI has been vindicated from day one? The first way of doing things should be a system change.
Yes, because DOI is not an accidental party. DOI was carefully created with a clear vision, with a mission. So amongst those who formed DOI, none of them accidentally joined DOI. They knew very well the demands and the circumstances of the country, and that is why they came together to be able to change that. So DOI is aware of the need for a system change. Since there was a time under the PPP, a lot of public service workers or civil servants were made redundant. State enterprises were privatized.
Yeah.
And these are some of the reasons why DOI even had to come, was to be created. So you do not sack orders or you privatize public enterprises just for you to be increasing your allowances. So these were issues that were happening. So DOI is thinking deep of a new Gambia, a Gambia that would work to the benefit of every single Gambian. And that is why the idea of a system, it's just been pronounced.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you read DOI's programs, all the programs have been talking about system change from the very first time the party was created. But there has to be a new Gambian too.
Yes.
And that's DOI is putting emphasis into that. And that new Gambian requires some sort of a cultural revolution, a change of mindset, change of attitudes, so that system change would be achieved and we will have a country that will work for all of us.
Wow. We'll have a country that will work for all of us. So we'll take our first commercial break. When we come back, we will look at the security situation of the country. And of course, DOI, why should we trust to vote in Halifa Sallah or whoever the flag bearer is? And DOI, are they also thinking about coalition? Because we have had talks of coalition between parties. And what is DOI's position in all of this? Because we all know DOI was one of the leading parties who effect this change, who pioneered the setting of this coalition that we're in right now. Are they open to talks for another coalition? These are things we will discuss when we come back. So we'll take our first commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about all of this.
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220, or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
fay lempo warugal la si képp koo xam ne doomi réew mi nga ak ñu fi dëkk bu fekkee ne ci at mi sa koom-koom weesu na $2,400 dalasi mbete weer bu nekk di nga am lu tollu si $2,000 dalasi lempo si la nguur gi di sukkandeku ngir liggéey yokkute réew mi GRA mooy banxaas bu nguuri Gambia sas ngir mu fayeku lépp luy lempo ci biir réew mi ba tax na GRA di yëgal faykati lempo yi ne warugal la pour ñu fay lu ñu naan withholding tax on contract payment maanaam bépp contract bu waay joxe te si biir réew mi lañu toog kon xaalis si contract bi ngeen nangotoo war nga cee wàññi ci xayma téeméer bu nekk fukka bu fekkee ne contracto bi dëkkut ci biir réew mi bu boobaa di nga war a wàññi téeméer bu nekk fukka ak juróom lii mooy lempo bu ñu naan withholding tax on contract payment lii mooy lempo bi nga xam ne yow mi joxe contract bi warugal la nga wëlbatiku dem fay ko ci maakaani GRA tax office bu la gën a jege mbete ci banque yi GRA jagleel pour fay lempo war ngaa jébal lempo bi si diiri fukki fan ak juróom gannaaw bi nga wàññee ci xaalis si contract bi amul benn contracto bu ñu teggil fay lempo bi xanaa mu fekk ne nguuri Gambia ñoo ko jégale boole si projet yi nga xam ne mbootaay ndimbali ñoo koy dépense GRA di fayeku lempo ngir yokkute réew mi
Sampam
deena
déedéet daf ma yónni woon ma suyal ko bii waaw yàlla def mu gañe jàppoon $100,000 la gën
laa ilaha illallah
te yow xam nga ne sama papa dafa amee cardiaque
yow da ngaa dof yow xam nga luy $100,000
am naa ko kay man naa lu ñëw bëggoon nga dimbali ci
demal na nga def damaa toog rek sama xel mi ne ci yow xam nga bërki démb li daal si benn waay fee waaw ma romb ko rek bërki démb waaw muy yuuxu di tëb ma ni kii lu ko dal ñu ne ma daal ci loto gaming Gambie bi la laal
jar na ko
laal na ci lu di waaw
nga dafa am quarté am kente am tiercé waaw maanaam nag tey jii
waaw
kente bi la te jackpot bee passé xaalis
kente mooy lan
kente maanaam mooy juróomi fas yi
waaw beneen bi
am na quarté mooy ñeenti fas yi ak tiercé tey nag xaalis bi daa gën a yokk
lu tax
ndax jackpot bële dañ kaa tegaat ci bii maanaam juróomi fas yi boo ko jàppee ci ordre mooy risque nga désordre bi sax day fay bu ma ko jàppoon
yooyu moom noonu la demee da ngay dem rek jouer
am na lu ma yaakaar
man gis naa seen kii yi kees yu ndaw yi ci biir dëkk bi mais daal dama ne lii moom amul xaalis da nga ciy def sa xaalis
day jël wecce rek sànni ko fa xool jëmbat la laa ilaha illallah yow li nga wax ni tey ji bu yàlla dogaloon ma gañe ko lu mu gàtt
fi mu toll nii boo gañe woon $100,000
waaw lu may def
waaw nooy def
xam nga yow sama xarit nga
waaw
damay fexe nga rey say noonu
ci nan
lu mu gàtt $50,000
waay
Thierno woowee ambulance
lan la lu xew ni
sa baay gay dee na
sama papa gay lu ko rey
$100,000 dalaa ne ko boo ma gañaloon si li ma la yónni dama ko koy jox mu daanu ni sama kaw
man waxuma ko mu waxee woon la ko noonu yow la ko waroon informé ndax yow yaa ko gañe yaa gañe jàppoon
Welcome back to part 2. Bokar, for the first part, we were able to look at the transformative agenda, what the government will look like when 2021 December, if we're able to get Khalifa into office. But also, it's important that we look at the current situation of the country. I know you are a key observer of issues in the country. How would you describe the Barrow government? 5 years into, few months into completing his term, how would you observe the government?
Very interesting. Sometimes I just simply describe this country a floundering state. You know, like when a fish is in the river, it has no direction, so it's floundering.
That's kind of.
So if you have a floundering state, So the government in charge must also be floundering.
Okay, okay.
Yes. A country and a government has to have clear directions. Because you are setting the scene for generations to come to take over a country. But if you ask them right now, what are their strategic objectives for this country? They will tell you that we will do A, B, and C. But they cannot simply tell you what is the direction to A, B, and C. And how are you going to sustainably do that? Oh, we will build roads.
Yeah.
Like from the first episode. But where are you getting the money for building the roads? Oh, we will help the youths. How are you going to help the youths? When you are issuing licenses to multinational corporations coming fishing in our waters, you cannot simply buy trawlers, train the youths to fish and land it in the country, process it, export it, earn some revenue from it. Simple science, basic science I would call it. When you could mortgage the country's resources to individuals, I mean, this is where the country needs to earn. This is where a state has to survive. A state cannot be a liability. It's like a business. If you are operating a business, you need profit to survive. And a state also needs profit to survive. So in doing so, you have to have a clear strategic direction for that country, not just for your generation, but for generations to come.
Yeah.
So my observation about this government right now is a total lack of direction. And they have to create one in the best interest of the Gambian people.
It's 5 months to election. All other parties, including NPP, are focused on getting re-elected. So why do you think the president at this point, the government will tell you all the things that like the agenda, half of them we have set up. The TRRC is ongoing. They will submit, I want to talk about that later on. They are submitting their report to the president very soon. The Commission of Inquiry have been set up. They have presented their recommendation to the president. Yes, everything has not been implemented, but at least it's been completed. We wanted a new constitution, and they have also set up a committee that has done that. Yes, it's been killed by the National Assembly. The government will say, well, we did our part. The National Assembly killed it. What else is there that they have promised? The security sector reform has also started. What is left? Why do you say there's no direction? Because this was the agenda, and they have started all of it. What is left?
You know, this country had a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
There could have been a new start in 2017 when Barrow assumed office. And the new start could have been served for 3 years, step down, and then we go back to elections. Then Gambians will decide by informed choices who to vote for. That was the main thing. All these other reforms you are talking about, they are subsidiary to the main issue. And the main issue was particularly the constitutional reforms, the electoral reforms. These were central issues to why there was even a coalition, to why we have to get rid of the previous government. But none of that has been delivered, which is the most disappointing thing about this administration. They had an opportunity to create a legacy, but they cannot simply create that legacy anymore because of interest or whatever political consideration one is having. One thing though about we Gambians is we can easily forget.
Yeah.
And we can easily crown ourselves as God-ordained kings and queens when we are not. How many people, know this guy before?
Who, Barrow?
Yes.
Yeah,
but suddenly, that person become an instrument for all of us to get rid of the previous regime with an objective.
Yeah.
And suddenly, people are now believing that, oh, he is God ordained.
Yeah.
I do remember the vice president,
Yeah.
Aissatou Touré.
Yes.
Once said, opposing the president means opposing God.
Yes.
And she also once said, we the women should be behind the men.
Yeah.
Now, someone over the years who had been campaigning against some of the patriarchal cultures we are having.
Yeah.
That is a society that has a lot of dominance over women.
Yeah.
Now you want everybody just to follow, all the women just to follow the men like that. So what was the intention then of those? But anyway, so her statement that opposing the president means opposing God tells a lot about we, the Gambian people. And the conditions of this country, Fatou, is very sad.
Yeah.
Some of us, like if you stayed a bit longer, the situation looks normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but you come in newly, 1 week, 2 weeks, you realize how abnormal, how disorderly, how disorganized we are as a society.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to work towards to change. Those who made it are not better than us. We are as intelligent as they are intelligent.
Yeah.
So what else do we need?
It boils down to us as a people. What are our priorities? What are the things that we're complaining about? What are the things we want government to do for us? And how do we even choose our leaders? I think it all boils down to the Gambian, and brings us to what you said, creating the new Gambian.
Yeah.
I think that should be the priority for every government that is coming into power.
And that is because we are so individualistic to an extent that we are not thinking for the collective good of our society.
Yeah.
Particularly the so-called educated ones.
Yeah.
The moment someone finds himself in a position of privilege, or the person will think that this is the end of the world here. I need to hold this family and go along. That is what is not good for this country.
Yeah.
And that is what needs to change. We need to create a new path. And that new path must come from us, the people, the Gambian people. We have talked and talked the talk. But it seems like this tiny piece of a land we call the country is not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
It's not ready for the 21st century. I mean, Fatou, when you imagine how small this country is,
Yeah.
with all the intellectuals and the human resources we have, we no longer have the problem of the human resources. I don't know where the Gambians notice that.
Yeah.
We have the experts, the intelligence. All that we need to do now is to be organized and be committed to building a new Gambia, and we will successfully do that. Rwanda totally crumbled down in 1994.
Yep.
Today it is a model
Yeah.
of development.
Yeah.
So what is stopping us?
Good
A
leader.
country that you know, I can go to Bashi and ask, do you know Fatou? Somebody will tell me yes.
Yeah.
She is my relative or she is my uncle's relatives. That's how the country is small.
Yeah.
So why is it that difficult for us?
What do we need to change? What do we need to do to be able to do a positive change on the people, but also in the systems? What do we need to do? Where do we start?
Leadership is key. We have been unfortunate that we are yet to have that leadership, that visionary leadership that will show an example. And that is where I personally trust my presidential candidate, Khalifa Sallah, that he would be a leader with an extraordinary example. A leader who would show compassion. A leader who will not betray the hopes and aspirations of the Gambian people. A leader who would probably even reduce his salary, not to increase it. A leader who will not be scrambling for allowances or having unnecessary budgetary allocations. At least he has that humility. At least he has demonstrated that over the years by even returning coupons that are allocated to him as a minority leader of the assembly, fuel coupons, and even not taking allowances. So
a lot of people will vouch for, including myself, Khalifa's qualities as an uncorruptible human being. I've worked with him when I was a young reporter at GRTS at age 18. I've gone to the Fourier Bureau doing programs with them, civic education program with my former boss, Auntie Aida. And that's how I got to know Khalifa and Sidia firsthand. And every single Gambian will vouch for his leadership qualities, his uncorruptible nature, his love for Gambia, and his interest to develop humankind and respect for human rights and law. But what people also have issues with is how they want it their way or no other way. How they don't want to messy their hands, especially when it comes to the coalition government. I am of the belief, me and so many other people, if Khalifa was part of this government, there were so many mistakes that happened, would not have happened. We all believed in that. They could have just sacrificed to be part of the leadership, because this was a government for all of us. And this was pre-dictatorship, post-dictatorship, and people wanted that change. A lot of people believed Khalifa being part of that government would have effected some change. No doubt about that. But they never wanted to be part of it because people believed they didn't want to mess their hands. They were getting ready for after this government so they could be positioned properly. This is some of the issues that people also have issues with when it comes to DOI leadership. It's either the DOI way or no other way. Why is that?
I think, if one has to examine that properly, that DOI way, that is what we need to understand very well. And as far as I am concerned, the DOI way is not to compensate an individual. The DOI way is not about individualism. The DOI way is the national interest and the collective good of society. Now, anything inconsistent with that may not be the DOI way. No one, I do believe that no one would give an example of where DOI has abdicated national responsibility. They will never run away from national duty. Yes, there were disagreements. But again, the issue of not being in the coalition government has been explained and emphasized several times.
Well, because I think the reason why we always bring it up is the effect of what we're seeing today. Because
someone who was really determined to become a politician, not to serve a transition and leave, will not take the DOI way. The signs were very clear.
From the beginning?
From the beginning, the signs were very clear. From the very first time they started disregarding the MOU, the constitution of the cabinet. And Khalifa would hold a press conference. The next day, another person will hold another press conference for the president. You can see the competing interests at the moment. So clearly, despite the fact, the bigger battle was to make sure that Jammeh lived. But there were some other kind of a protracted struggle beneath. So DOI leaders would have found it very difficult to ensure that some of the mistakes you are talking about were not done under this current system. Because no matter how influential they are, in the end, we have an executive president
with an executive power.
With an executive power, who can sack without even telling you the reason. So what can you do?
That's a fair argument. So finally, before we go, the TRRC is wrapping up and they will be submitting their report. Are you optimistic that the president will implement the findings of the TRRC considering its election year?
I think yes. Undoubtedly it would be a difficult situation for him, because this is a person who has shown to the whole world that he is now a political animal, as he would call himself.
He called himself.
So political animals will fight for their interest. And if his interest is to win the support of the APRC, then one could assume that he would be reluctant in implementing the findings of the TRRC report. But if he do believe that he can win without the APRC, one can still give him the benefit of doubt on the balance of probabilities. Because it's difficult to predict the actions of a political animal. They can change overnight, depending on where the narrative is looking good. Yes. So, but what I do expect him to do is to implement, fully implement the recommendations of the TRRC without fear of favor, affection of, or ill will, in the best interest of Gambians. Bearing in mind that the overarching objective of why the TRRC was created was to correct the past and reconcile Gambians.
So finally, it's few months to election. Everybody's campaigning. What is DOI waiting for? What is DOI waiting for? What is the strategy? People are on the campaign trail. What is happening? Why is DOI not on the campaign trail? Are you waiting for the last minute surprise?
You know, so many issues happen along the way, including COVID-19 restrictions. And there is no doubt that some of the political actors were not giving due consideration to these restrictions. And to an extent, it has affected DOI's activities. But right now, I can tell you, like you said, a strategy is a strategy. One need not to disclose that in the public. Strategy is being slowly implemented. Now, the only thing remaining is for everything to be released like from spring. That is what is remaining now. And people will see DOI stronger than before, would see DOI as a major force as soon as possible, a force that is ready to take this country to a right path, a path that the generation unborn would benefit from and would be proud of being Gambians without even having to go outside this country.
Apart from his character, which a lot of us can vouch for, Honorable Halifa Sallah, and also what he has shown us during the coalition, the leadership he has shown for this country not to go in flames, a lot of us attribute that to him. I remember when I was in the diaspora, just listening to him on press conferences assured us that our parents will not die because there was so much tension. And we were all scared that the Gambia was going to go in flames. And he showed extremely exemplary leadership.
That is leadership, Fatou. I'll tell you from a personal experience.
Yeah.
Before we became a coalition, some of us were closely dealing with him.
Yeah.
But when the coalition was created, he started creating a distance so that we do not drag him into a lot of partisan considerations, that the bigger picture
was Gambia.
And the coalition was a project to rescue the Gambia. And when the victory was announced, some people, especially I would call them the petty bourgeois, they are very clever.
Yeah.
They would only come when they know this Benachin is ready.
Yeah.
So they would start contacting people that are very close to some of these key coalition figures.
Yeah.
So Khalifa bin Khalifa, I believe, understood this would be happening. People would like to patronize others. People would like to lobby for things. In fact, he started keeping more distance. But personally, I didn't realize that then. It is until when I read something about the former Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, his biography, Thomas Sankara. Then I came across this path that when he became the leader of the country, the first thing he told his family is, do not accept a penny from anybody. That's what Thomas Sankara told his family. Because he knew that people will be coming and they'll be lobbying for things, with gifts, with whatever means.
Yeah.
Then I started thinking in that direction. Possibly this was the reason why Khalifa was acting this way. But yes, different forces we are coming closer. Different forces we are coming. So that shows that this is a person that if he is entrusted with the leadership of this country, it will not be because, oh, I know Sulayman, he has to get this. No, I can tell you that. It's totally a different character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why should Gambians believe that the transformative agenda is what will take us to the promised land?
Because the transformative agenda, not yet published, but the overview tells that it has clearly mapped out the Gambian context. And there is a need for a shift of economic paradigm, a shift of approaches to national development. And that shift would encourage public and private sector partnership so that Gambians would benefit from what they own, like I said at the beginning, so that few companies and individuals will not continue to exploit us to the detriment of the greater good of the country. So that the country also would have sources of income through state-owned enterprises or through partnership with the private sector. Then that income would be used to give us roads, to give us schools, to give us hospitals, without having to take loans, without having to go and beg. That is the strategic objective.
Thank you very much, Sulayman. Final message to Gambians, especially right now what we're doing is to advocate for peace. We have finished the process of registration. There's so much tension in the country right now, and what we're employing on all political operatives is to advocate for a peaceful election, peaceful campaign season, and just sell our message to the Gambian people. Whoever the Gambian people decide to listen to, they will vote for in December. What's your message to the Gambian people, especially the young people?
Is to bear in mind that nothing is better than peace. Before you start talking about democracy, before you even have the ability to scrutinize a head of state, there must be peace first. But if there is no peace, we will not even have time to go to the ballot box. And that is quite important for the future of this country, for our peaceful coexistence. The Gambia has been lucky in the sense that we have never experienced that magnitude of terror or war like some other African countries have experienced. But it is devastating. If you want to know how devastating it is, lock your kids in a room for a day. You deprive them food and you see whether you can even stand that as an individual. You would be the first person to cry. So let us not undermine that peace we have. Let's continue to do politics as required by best standard of practice in the most civilized way, in the most civilized manner, without insults, without character assassination, because it doesn't worth it.
It doesn't worth it.
Incitements and all those uncouth behaviors should be something that we should raise our standards above and talk on issues.
Should be the battle of ideas.
Exactly.
Not nasty words.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sulayman, Bokar Ba, and it's good having you one more time on the Kerr Fatou. We do appreciate you sharing your wisdom and ideas all the time when you are in the Gambia. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best going back home.
Thank you, Fatou. Thank you. It's a pleasure being back here again, and thank you for contributing to shaping our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and to you all watching, good night to you all, and see you next week with another guest. Good night. Bye-bye.
Better and stronger as the sole ground operator at the Banjul International Airport. With an expansion in travel services, customers are assured of GIA's capacity to cater for all their travel needs, provided by professional, experienced, and ever-smiling staff. GIA's Hajj package and services, by far the best in the country, give the customers the opportunity for a memorable Hajj experience. For a more efficient cargo services, GIA means business as it launches its new multi-million-dollar ultra-modern cargo complex to revitalize and stimulate air transport. GIA, the pride of the Gambia.
Gamcell data, now even better. Enjoy 20% extra data on all Gamcell data bundles. Buy 20 megabytes and get extra 4 megabytes. Buy 50 megabytes and get extra 10 megabytes. Buy 100 megabytes and get extra 20 megabytes. Any amount of Gamcell data bundle you buy, you will receive 20% extra data for free. Dial *302* data amount hash or go to your Yaiborom menu and choose your data bundle now. Gamcell data is fast, lasts longer, and very reliable. Gamcell Yaiborom.